Perfect. All right. Well, hello, everyone. We will convene this board briefing at 2 p.m. We have two topics on our list today, and we're going to kick off with the discussion regarding alternative funding for the Tillamook Bay Community College building project. And I think Chris Landy is going to kick us off. So, Chris,
Yeah.
please.
So, very, very high level background. 2015 flood, 2016 received
Chris,
FEMA
can
money.
I interrupt you for just one second?
Yeah.
I when you said that, when you introduced it as the alternative funding for the TVCC building project, I flinched a little bit because I think that it isn't a TVCC building project. It's our project, the Kilchis.
Okay,
Yeah.
certainly. So I was reading what
Sorry.
was on our
I
list.
know.
So I think this is going to introduce us. This is alternative funding for the flood mitigation project formerly called the Kilchis House.
Correct.
So is that clearer? Okay, good. So we're all on the same page, Chris. Please lead us in.
Okay, so again, high level is 2015 flood. 2016 gets funded from FEMA to go ahead and design a stormwater system that will mitigate potential flooding of the Kilchis House. The flood primarily went across the fairground. The water originated from the fairgrounds parking lot, essentially the big field, went across Tillamook Bay Community College and went directly towards Kilchis House. The solution at that point was to come up with FEMA money, which we secured for design and construction, which we secured to go ahead and design a system. As we got into the process, it became a little clear that this is a little bit more complex than at first it seemed. We split out the design component and then the construction into two separate phases. Got approval for phase one after already being approved for design and construction. Got approval for phase one. We started going through the process, ran into some environmental issues, had to regroup a couple different times because of the complexity of the site. When we eventually finished the design, took a while to do that after clearing a bunch of environmental hurdles. We were right at the very end. We had to go back and do a little bit more in the archaeology report. We had to redo the wetland study. We were really right down to the end where we were about ready to put this thing out, and FEMA says they're not going to fund it. So 100% design, 75% paid for FEMA. They pulled out. The reason why they said they're not going to fund the construction component because Kilchis House no longer existed. Assisted living facility ticks the box on one of their approved facilities because of the assisted living facility. When it no longer became an assisted living facility, the mobility issue that came with that allowed it to be equated to a hospital doesn't exist. We countered back to FEMA and said, well, in order to get into Turnstone Commons, which is what it became, you need to have one of the five larger mental health issues, and we presented that to them. Office of Emergency Management is the actual applicant, the recipient of the FEMA grant. We are a sub-recipient to that. OEM has pushed back a number of times on that to little to no avail. That's not entirely dead. They've got a new consultant on board going to push back again. But realistically, that's a slim chance of getting approval through that. As this process was going through, and we're literally right down to ticking the final boxes, yep, we need to update the wetland. About that point, the college started constructing their facility. So we're working with the college to how do we connect their proposed storm drain system into our FEMA project. Came up with some really creative solutions, a benefit to the college, a benefit to everybody else. The larger FEMA project not only minimizes impacts to Turnstone Commons, it helps out the city because we have the ability to tie fairground stormwater into the system. So it helps out the city directly. It helps out the fairground because they can tap into our system. And it's certainly, it's just a benefit all around. It doesn't really impact the road department, although we kind of manage this type of stuff. So we looked at this and said, okay, FEMA money's out. There's a slim chance that could go through the process. We start looking at when can we actually build these things. Of course, we're building during the dead of summer. We can't really build a stormwater system underground in the middle of winter. So we got a fairly narrow window in order to get this thing out. If you recall, we transferred money that is It was intended, the county raised the money. We've got $640,000 match money that was for this project. We still have that money. It was kind of transferred through ARPA, Big Trout, but that $640,000 was the 25% match for the project. It's still there. We still have that. So that money is still available. We looked at this from the larger perspective. The big FEMA project went across the fairground property under 3rd Street and down towards Highway 6 in that ditch. It goes through a pond before it gets out to the ditch. So, but that project also included doing work on 3rd Street. Most of the water, 95% of the water, came through the community college towards Kilch's house. A portion of the water came down 3rd Street, turned a corner, and then went down to Kilch's house. So maybe it was 10% that came that route. So he said, where can we look at saving some funds? Because at the end of the day, we still got to build the thing. So in the original estimate, this goes back to 2022, which we thought was fairly conservative. We had worked with the consultant to go ahead and say, now we brought in Brian Oley as the engineering project manager for the county. Will take over some of those duties. That right there saved us quite a bit of money. But we said the original 2022 estimate is still pretty valid, so we did not inflate that up to today's standard. That total project cost was $2.6 million. I'm using rounded numbers. So at that point, we had been short by $1.9 million in order to do that. We said, okay, let's take a look to see if we were to go bare bones and still accommodate the fairgrounds and the community college and minimize the impacts to Turnstone Commons, is we would take out 3rd Street. The college has already built their component of it, and actually the FEMA project that was completed within their property under their project. Obviously, they would like to get reimbursed for that. The amount of work to be remaining, assuming the college is already taken care of, which it is, we don't build on 3rd Street. We are looking at needing $1.3 million is what we're funding short on. That is the $640,000 that we already have. In addition to that would be 1.3 million short. So a couple options to fund this is we can continue to go down the route of FEMA, the BCA. That process will kick us out of construction this year. So it would require the college to essentially pump throughout all this upcoming winter, which is obviously not ideal. The other big benefit to this is that we've relocated the water from Holden Creek, which we know Holden Creek is a big issue in the city of Tillamook. So this removes that water that would normally go down there so there's a larger benefit. It's a benefit overall. So when you take that into account, we said, well, this is needed. This isn't something that we can just scrap and put off to the shelf. It's like this is, even if we didn't get FEMA money, it should be done. It should be done for a wide variety of reasons. So road department has been managing this. I can't use gas tax money to build this. Gas tax, I get audited every year in September on how did I appropriately use this. I can fund it outright. I've got the money in the Fund 308 to fund this thing outright and they get reimbursed. So funding it is not so much of an issue. It's the reimbursement to the road department that becomes a little bit of an issue because I have to show that we've used the road department money for road department purposes. Now, the road department also receives 30% of the TLT money. The TLT money is not subject to ODOT's audit because it's not gas tax. The promises made with the TLT was that money would be used for road department purposes, obviously. So that gets into a little bit of what is appropriate or not. So the other option, now TLT money is a little overextended or potentially can be over a few years. So one of the proposals that I have is county road department pay for it outright. We get this thing built, we get it built this year. To do that, it takes about a month and a half to go through the advertising process before we can issue a notice to proceed. Contractors, we're probably 2 months out before we can give the contractor the notice to proceed, maybe a little bit more. Some of that work can be done prior to fair, but obviously we don't want the fair to be impacted by this project. So we can fund it outright. Timing is critical because October, while it doesn't seem that far away from a contracting point of view, it is. This does require one special piece of equipment as we're going to bore underneath Third Street. So that is kind of specialized equipment to do it. And these lines are 20 feet deep in the ground by the time we get under Third Street. This is a deep line. So we've got a little bit of specialized equipment in order to do that. Not to say that we can't do that during the dead of winter, but certainly anything we open cut, we don't want to do. We know there's a groundwater problem there. The option is TLT, and not know the specifics of the money in the budget, but TLT fund that remaining outright, or road department fund it outright, and then over a couple of years, whatever is actually worked within the TLT budget, we refund the road department over the next few years. And that would give us kind of the way to do something now that needs to be done. The money that I have set aside for work that's going to be summer construction of 28, 29, I'm essentially tapping into. In order to do that, it does remove some of the war chest, so to speak, on things that money I can tap into during a storm response. However, we never had that before. So the TLT money is really allowed us to build a nest egg, a war chest, as it were, to save money for future needs, because we have a lot of grant money coming in that we never had. But that money is also held for future use where I could use it now. So if we got reimbursed over the next few years, that would actually be a benefit all around. Helps TLT, we get something built. The road department's not out any cash. Didn't look at interest or anything like that, so that's a different situation there. But that was the introduction to it. I can answer questions, or we can turn it over to Paul.
Does anybody have questions for Chris's portion of this? I realize I don't know if you've had a chance to catch up with Chris and get deeper. Okay, perfect.
I like the idea of, yes, I understand the background of it, so
Okay.
I don't need to ask you any questions right now.
I think the other thing too is, the alternate funding, but then also it is a possibility, it's an outside possibility that the consultant for, the new consultant that's working for the Office of Emergency Management, they could still pull a win out. It's unlikely, but that would probably be till next summer construction. It's going to delay this project a year.
So I do have a question. I would probably recommend going ahead and funding this, but would any of that money, if FEMA decided or we changed their mind, would we be able to reimburse ourselves with that money?
No. No. We have been 100% paid for through design, and we've been reimbursed at 75% of our cost for the design. The remaining portion of that has actually been paid out of the non-road department funds. So the up to design has been already paid for. It's really the construction component moving forward is there's no money for that from FEMA, and I can't use any of that money for another project. I didn't use it here, I can use it someplace else.
If you saying that OEM was still trying to get a different answer out of them, are you saying this project's there? Because I thought you were saying that there's still a possibility we might get some funds from that end. Is that not true?
No, it is true. So the Office of Emergency Management has tried a couple different times to convince FEMA that this is a good project. It's the way the words are written in the grant program that really is kicking out the Turnstone Commons. They are bringing on another consultant that works through a benefit cost analysis to make an attempt to, let's try it again. Let's throw, another Hail Mary pass if we can get money.
I think the question is, if we pay for it,
I'm not sorry.
can I try? Is that okay?
I see
So
what you're saying.
I think the question is, if we build it this summer, can we continue to work with FEMA so that then, even though it might take them a year from now to say, oh yeah, we do approve it, can we still get their money once it's built, or once we build it, do we close the FEMA door?
No,
No, we can't get the money.
we
from
cannot
FEMA.
get reimbursed
Okay.
because work needs
that's
to
one where
take
you
place
can't.
after.
Yeah.
There's not retroactive.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, please.
My question for Chris is if you'd clarify, you talked a little bit about the timeline. If you'd clarify when we need to make a decision in order to get this started this year, because my understanding is that it's very tight.
Right. So considering that we're about 2 months in order to issue a notice, we've got some minor changes that we need to do to the contract. Just to get through the process, it takes about a month and a half by the time we advertise. We do notice of intent to award, we do a pre-bid meeting. All that takes about a month and a half to go from when we first release it to, for internal review at Isabel's office, to when you folks sign the contract, to when we can issue notice to proceed. The contractor at that point needs, assuming he's available, that he needs some time to get his equipment in there. So when we start backing that out and we start looking at approximately mid-October for doing that work, so we want to be done by mid-October, and you back out 3 months with a break in there, about a month break. So that takes us September. So we've got October, September, August. Take one of those months out, that puts us to July. So we want to start constructing in July. Ideally, that's when the ground table water's low. That also gets us to our October end date. So we start construction in October, or excuse me, July 1st. You back out, you call it 2 months because we've got a little prep, just contract. That puts us in May and June. So 1st of May is when we really need to get this advertised. But with that too, is that we also need some time for the contractor to mobilize and get up to speed. So that puts us really at this window to start getting contracts over to internal, to Isabel for review and Rachel for review.
Like in the next couple of weeks is what I'm hearing.
That's correct.
Yeah. And have we checked out the timeline with Cammie? Is it going to work for her if we pull all this off and we can start in July? Have we coordinated that?
We would essentially shut down operations for the month around the fair, before and after the fair.
Okay.
So we know we don't need to close it down that much. We know that some of this work can be done during fair, although we wouldn't. The week of fair, we absolutely wouldn't do anything. But leading up to the fair, it's 2-3 weeks. We really don't want to be out there at all. And we can do some work up to it. So any of the trenching that we do, laying the pipe, we can do before the fair hits. We can put all that. The boring, the work on the city's property, which we have all the easements in place. So the cities, the line goes between the college, the new college annex, and the city public works. It goes right down the middle between those two. That work that is done on the north side of 3rd Street can be done during the fair. Right. So the work that's in there, and a lot of that can be done prior to the fair.
Okay.
The big thing on the timing and the sequencing is when the boring equipment comes in. It's very exciting, actually. Sorry, bad joke. But the big machines that come in and
We can appreciate that.
yeah, the big machines that come in and start boring a hole underneath, boring a tunnel underneath 3rd Street in order to put this 30-inch pipe under there. I think it's 30. That takes a big chunk of space off the fairground property to open it up in order to get the pushing machine in there. So that can't be started until after the fair is done.
Okay.
Or it can be started as long as it's wrapped up before fair starts. So they can do that component either before or after, and everything can tie into that, or that can tie into the others.
Okay.
Contractors, ability to do that.
Okay. And have you talked to Cammie?
I have not.
Okay, so Cammie, since you're with us,
Not at this level.
Okay, I would love to just, I think, give you an opportunity to state any concerns that you have while we're making our decision making. So do you have anything you'd like to? Yeah. Hi, Cammie.
Hey. No, actually, just wanted to hear what the update was. And Chris has always been very helpful in just kind of keeping me abreast, whether it's his office or him directly. So as far as the timeline for fair, we can make accommodations as well. Obviously, we're not going to change the week of fair, and usually it's the week prior to the fair. Right. Everything else that happens in that field, if we're just talking about the northwest side, we can like I said, make accommodations that you could stretch into the 2nd week of July. We really just start spraying the field with marking for parking. So really that's all that we do there, leading up to the fair. Okay. So I'm good with it.
Yep. Okay. Thank you. I appreciate that.
Thank you. Yeah.
Okay. So then any other questions for Chris? I know that we have the community college with us. So, come on up, guys.
introduce yourself for the record if you would, please.
Good afternoon. Paul Gerald, President of Tillamook Bay Community College. How are you all today?
We're good, thank you.
Good, thanks for
Good.
coming.
You bet. Thanks for the opportunity to discuss this matter before you all to try to get a sense of what might work best for the community. As Chris mentioned, we've been engaged in a project at the college, the building project of the health education building. It's a publicly funded building. If you haven't been by lately, you should go by. It's quite impressive right now. And part of that project, the entire design of the project was based upon the assumption that this FEMA project would be complete. The groundwater system there, stormwater in particular, to maintain stormwater, we designed, or our architect designed a system that was, I think, signed off on by the county in June, I want to say June or July, that was based on the fact that we would be able to have our stormwater effluent go into this FEMA line or this FEMA project. The long-range goal of that, obviously, and I also shook a little bit when you said this was TBCC's construction project, but was really to alleviate some of the flooding, the potential for flooding that can occur west of the college, and in particular to alleviate some of the strain on the property there, formerly the Kilchis House. And also, I would say in the long run, to be able to remove some of the stormwater issues of flooding into Holden Creek. So all of it is kind of tied together in that regard. We did our design, just to give you a sense, we have put in about a $600,000 stormwater system to manage our stormwater that has about 3,300 feet of pipe and about 90 to 100,000 gallons of storage capability to store water during surge conditions. The goal, of course, with that is to be able to have that water slowly trickle out into the FEMA lines, right? And with the absence of that, the only place that water has to go would be Holden Creek at this point, right? And I think it's important that we need to recognize that that's really what we're trying to do, is to alleviate that. Because of the flow of water too, we tend to pick up on our property most of the stormwater that comes off the fairground property as well. So again, that would help mitigate that stormwater conditions there. We have constructed, based upon the designs that we worked with Chris's group on, we have installed already the portion of what would be the FEMA project that would go through our campus, because timing-wise it wasn't going to work, and we didn't want to build our plaza and then have it dug up again. It didn't make a lot of sense. So we installed that. We've probably put about $120,000 into that project as well. That would have been part of the FEMA project. The other thing that you have to realize is, in order to manage the stormwater, if we were to have to pump and continue pumping, we would spend about $4,000 a month in just pumping stormwater. So that's something obviously that we're not really prepared to be able to do either. And pumping that doesn't alleviate any of the strain on Holden Creek either. So we're here to try to, just figure out how we can be a good partner, a better partner. We've worked really well with Chris and his crew, so hopefully we can, come up with a solution that'll work here.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Questions, comments?
So when you were just talking about you are currently pumping, or in high water events, you're pumping because the underwater cisterns fill up and you have
Yes.
to pump them out, and the pumping out is going to Holden Creek.
Correct.
And so I really appreciate you being here and talking about this, because so far all of the work the college has done on this building and the work Chris has done have been very cooperative. And I know
Oh, very much so.
the
Yeah.
college building was designed with the FEMA project in mind, and so here we are. so here we are.
Yeah, and I would say,
So here we are.
yeah, the other good partner's really been the fairgrounds too. I mean, Cammie's been a really good partner. We've tried to, all three of us, sort of stay on board with each other in terms of any changes that might impact each other. And, when we got the news a few months ago or a couple months ago that the FEMA project was starting to not look promising, that made us a little uneasy, for the reasons that we've articulated.
We did look at a number of options, so when we knew this was not going to, when FEMA said no, and we said, okay, let's keep pushing back, from the state to FEMA, is we started looking at alternate solutions, is that what can we do to make this work if we don't have the FEMA project? The water wants to flow to Holden Creek, so any solution other than the FEMA project would take all that water to Holden Creek. Holden Creek has problems. We run into an issue of height, right? So without using pumps, we ran into a gravity. There's just not enough fall except for to take it to Highway 6. So working with the college, we essentially came to the conclusion that the only viable solution for this is using the FEMA project, going back to that original design. Make it cost effective, take 3rd Street out.
So Chris, just so that for the numbers, so where we are, I think we've established that this needs to be done. It's not an option as to whether or not we put this in. It has to happen. We're looking at either, if I hear you correctly, 2 possible pathways forward right now. The first one is that you need $1.3 million because you have the $640,000. We don't need to worry about that. So the remaining hole is 1.3. You have money, you could just do this, but you need to be reimbursed for that from in a different funding source of some kind that we as commissioners need to identify in order to make that happen. And if I heard you correctly, you need the money back by 2028?
I think, ideally it's 2028 or, and I was thinking in my head, maybe it was an incremental payoff over a couple of years.
Right,
So
but
that could be
you
26, 27,
need it back
28.
by 2028. So for us, if we're looking at our needs here, we need to find $1.3 million that can be available between now and 2028.
Correct.
Okay. So that's one road that we would potentially be going down, which gets it built, ideally gets it built this summer into the fall, which then alleviates the need for the college to have to pump their property into that following winter. Alternatively, you would be pumping probably certainly November, December, January, February, March, April. There would be six months probably.
Yeah, at least.
At least, so $4,000 times 6 months, so $24,000, like 6 times 4. You do those, you're like, never do math in public. It's just not a good idea, right? It's just not, but $24,000 there. And that is on a wing and a prayer that we can find out, perhaps there are some mobility challenged individuals living at Turnstone Commons that we could, raise a flag or something, but it's a long shot. So that's that other path, which is just, and that would get us the FEMA money, but it costs an extra $24,000 to wait the year and to hope. Am I understanding correctly kind of the 2 journeys in front of us?
I think that sums it up pretty well. On the hope that FEMA will come back and fund it, of which costs increase.
Right, so if not, then we've $24,000 worth of pumping or more, plus our costs have elevated. Okay.
With a light chance of that, a slim chance of actually getting funded.
Okay.
We're Hail Mary passing, another Hail Mary pass to try to get through this. And the words are pretty clear. I just think we're going to have a hard time getting that. And we do have an alternate path forward.
Yeah, because they've already said no. So this would be getting them to change their minds.
They've said no several times.
Yeah.
They've been pretty sure, but there's a new guy coming on, maybe, right? And then we're all looking to see what's happening with FEMA. Okay, so there's those 2 pathways.
There's one more possibility. I talked to Senator Weber about State of Oregon funding. She suggested that I reach out to Melanie Olson, see if there's any Business Oregon funding, which I did last week. I haven't heard back from her yet, but I think my hope is that if that were possible and we move forward now, that maybe that would be, if that came to pass, maybe that would also be reimbursable.
Okay, it could be part of how we pay Chris back.
Right.
Okay.
It would be a loan unless she actually has money, but it would be a government loan.
Okay.
Would be my understanding.
Okay, I was gonna ask Rachel, I realize this is totally off the cuff and you may not have information, but two things. One is you've been property managing for us for a long time. Do you have thoughts, as we've kind of described the two pathways, and the other is, I know you've been working with Business Oregon on the levy funding. Do you have any thoughts on Business Oregon funding before we continue the kind of conversation?
I don't have any thoughts from a property management standpoint. Regarding TLT use, that's a lot of money, and I would just want to affirm that it's all supporting the fairgrounds, because if it's supporting the Kilchis House or the new facility or the college or anything else, it doesn't qualify. So we need to be able to say with a straight face that 1.3 is fully supporting the fair. I don't know if we can say that, but just a decision point.
I can say that. I think I can comfortably say that college has already built their stuff. We're building the stuff on the fairgrounds, that even if the college wasn't there, this would support this would 100% be fairground related.
Business Oregon has a lot of different funding, so they're going through a bond sale in the spring that we're looking to support the Shiloh. They have 0% loan, so I think there are a lot of opportunities for Business Oregon, but Melanie would be the person to ask about that. So you're on the right path with that.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, appreciate that. Okay, so knowing what we know, it seems as if our best path forward is to get this built. That said, we need to figure out, commissioners, where we would get the money to reimburse roads over the next 3 years. Transient lodging tax is one we've talked about. I think what we're looking at with transient lodging tax is the risk that Orla, we'll just say the name because that's who's the one who tends to push on things, right? Would find someone to say that no, it is not in fact 100% benefiting the fairgrounds, to Rachel's point, and that it would be an inappropriate use. So I think that's the risk factor that we're looking at if we were to choose to use 100% TLT. Is that a fair statement from how you see it?
I guess my opinion on this is obviously there's other ideas of what we could do out there in that property that Orla would not be mad at. And this would benefit that, any kind of conference center or hotel or something like that, which is in the fair's strategic plan anyway. So I think I have no problem arguing, but I also think he has the money. We're worried about how we're going to pay it back. We know we can use TLT money to do it, or at least we believe we can. And I think the argument is there that it'll support tourism facilities, the fair, and any future development of that property. But also, yeah, so I think I'm comfortable with using TLT money, absolutely. But I don't think we have to decide to use that all at once. We can figure this out if some of the money happens to come through. But I feel comfortable using that as the final, if we have to. But I would still welcome meeting with Suzanne and Business Oregon and see if there's other options as well. But I don't think we should hold the project up.
Okay.
I agree. I think it's essential that the project moves forward for all the reasons we've talked about, including the flooding to Holden Creek, and including the impacts to the city that all of that stormwater is currently going through their sewage treatment, and so there are myriad benefits to this project, and I don't think we can justify holding it up. And I agree that the fairgrounds is entirely a tourist facility, and all the water is generated there. And so when we're talking about the college or Holden Creek, those are the downstream consequences, but the problem is from the fairgrounds, which is entirely a tourist facility. So I think we're good there, and it'll be great if we don't have to use all of the TLT. If we come up with some different funding, that would be ideal.
But you'd get your money. You'll get your money back.
Great. That's yeah. And who knows, as we move forward, it's the projects that are scheduled to be built in summer of '29 is we might have another winter like this one where we have, we don't end up spending money that is requiring that 25% match. And or any damage that we do sustain is 100% reimbursed, like it was with Crystal Creek and the Sand Lake road slide, 100%. We end up paying 10% for the final construction, so not entirely 100%. So I think we've got a good path forward. So we internally, with our engineering group, we will, we're permitted through the city. We've got all that stuff in place. The easements are in place between the college, us, and the city. So everything's ready to go. We'll go ahead and start with the final narrative package deal for the request for, excuse me, for the call for bid. And then I don't know if we need to go through anything formal, but I think at this point, with the direction I'm receiving, is go forth and prosper.
I think that we have to go forward. I think it's one of those where we can't not go forward. I look forward to really looking at making sure the TLT, and I would be more comfortable if we partnered it with something else to be able to say that there's a portion of this that is related to tourism as related to the property. But we have also talked about very openly here that part of this is a benefit to the community college and part of this is a benefit to the city of Tillamook. So I think that in terms of having this conversation, it would be beneficial to us if we can find a couple of sources that we can pull together to do this in terms of just the risk mitigation piece. But I think there's more to be determined on that. It's part of what we have coming, I believe, in the Tiberius study is going to be looking at some of that risk mitigation, and legal guidance will get related to what the county really can and can't do with resources to be to pass a straight face test. So I think that is probably to be determined on this. But I absolutely agree based on my reading of the transient lodging tax stuff that we were doing and reading specifically the DOJ report, which talks about what is a tourism related facility. The fairgrounds are absolutely listed as a tourism related facility. So I mean, I think that part's very clear.
So 1.3 is the shortfall. We already have $640,000 that originated out of ARPA.
Mhm.
So there is already a 25% cost share of non-TLT funds for this project.
Okay, thank you.
It's the 1.3 is the shortfall, not the total project cost.
That is
Right.
great.
Yeah, thank you. That's helpful because I think that helps us in the event that we needed to defend ourselves around, is this a multifaceted project? It does have multifaceted funding.
Mhm.
And I would add that the reason we're responsible for it is because we own the fairgrounds. And so when the flooding happened, Kilch's House was never responsible for this. They received the water in the end, but they were never responsible for it. We are, because the water is generated at the fairgrounds. So I think it's a very strong argument.
Thank you. I like the way you frame it.
Yeah.
That's good. Okay.
How much is the college street so far?
We have spent on the FEMA project about a little more than $120,000, I believe.
It was another source of this project being multifaceted.
True.
Several funding sources.
They've also made a betterment to the system. So in that facility they've added underground storage tank, which will serve as a surge. So there's a mass flush of water coming in from a heavy rainstorm that will collect in those big tanks, surge tanks. And then that would discharge into the FEMA project, which would ultimately flow out there. So if they had not built their project and they didn't have that, we still needed to build it, college or no college, we still needed to build it. The addition of the expansion of the college for the nursing created an opportunity to make a betterment, obviously needed for them, but a betterment to our system. So the cash of $120,000 that built the FEMA portion on their property is actually more than that because they made a betterment to the system by work that they did through collaboration.
Yeah, I mean, I want to be clear. I mean, we hope to be reimbursed for the $120,000 that we've spent on the FEMA lines. In addition to that, as part of our project, as Chris was referring to, the sort of surge system to protect against a 25-year event or so, we've put in a little more than $600,000 into that, to manage that stormwater.
And again, that's helpful if we are looking and saying that this is the fairgrounds or the tourism-related facilities piece of a larger fix of which.
Yeah, and I would say too, I mean, remember that the facility that we're building that allowed us to make some of these improvements, I mean, that does have significant community space in it that is designed to enhance the ability to use not only the spaces we have on campus, but to partner with the fairgrounds to be able to create more of a complex of facilities that are available for community use.
Okay, thank you. Since I do see that Joel's with us, Joel, can I put you on the spot and ask you if you have any immediate grave concern if we're to provide guidance to move forward with the expectation that transient lodging tax would be potentially a portion of how the county will pay for their part? Sitting here listening, are you feeling like we're good? Or are you feeling like, boy, are we out on a skinny limb?
Based on what Mr. Laity said, I think there's strong arguments there. And I also think, as has already been pointed out, we're talking about TLT funding a portion of the project. And there's no doubt that the fairgrounds qualifies, that this is, directly relevant and directly impacts the fairgrounds. I mean, there are some downstream, pardon the term, beneficiaries, but I think there's a strong argument there. I mean, I think it's, obviously as we move forward, we'll want to continue to get more details, and I'm happy to have more conversations with Chris about that. But I think, based on what was said here, I don't have any immediate concerns.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, Rachel, is there anything that we need to do other than this is a consensus for Chris to move forward with going ahead and finalizing documents and putting this out to bid? And then obviously when we get the bids back, we will know what we're actually looking at, because that's always a magic moment when we get to open those and see how much it would really cost. So that seems like the next decision point for us all. Does that make sense? Yep. Okay. All right. Thank you very much.
Yeah,
Appreciate you
thank
being
you.
here. Thank you for coming, Paul. Appreciate it. And
Oh, my pleasure.
let's get this thing fixed.
See you soon.
Okay, we will move on to topic number 2, which is exceptionally unique. I read the thing, I was like, what? Which is around the state of Oregon one-call system for our Parks Department's unknown and unexpected participation. So, Dan.
Yeah, thank you for your time today. I really appreciate it. This is, for me, it's an unusual situation. I mean, I've been an administrator in Parks and Rec for over 30 years. I've never seen anything like this before, so it was a surprise. Without going into a lot of detail, essentially in late 24, I started to receive email notifications from one call that were really kind of mildly threatening. They were saying that we weren't in compliance, that they couldn't communicate effectively with us, so on and so forth. So of course I was worried. I addressed it right away. I got a hold of them. We established communication. I had to fill out a bunch of forms. And during this process, what I realized was that we've been identified as an operator, which was responsible for locating and marking underground utilities within various areas throughout the county, known to one call as polygons. I've attached to the report several of those just so you get an idea about what those are. And then we have to do that within 48 hours of receiving a ticket. Again, I've attached a sample ticket as well as several of the polygons. And I also need to state, just so that everybody understands what the one call is that in 1995, the legislature created the Oregon Utility Notification Center, state agency with the mission of reducing damages to underground facilities and promote public safety related to excavation issues with the following mandate. I won't go into all the mandate stuff. It's a noble mission, and everybody understands the importance, right? Yes, I was surprised to learn all of this. And you know what? But I also wanted to deal with it and hit it head on as well. I talked to staff, and nobody knew anything about it. We've probably been getting tickets for who knows how long, and none of the guys that I was working with had ever done any of the underground locates. So why? Well, you know what? I don't know. I just don't know, right? So what? So I needed to find out more. And what I needed to understand is how did Parks get designated as an operator?
Well, so I requested a copy of what I thought would be a signed agreement between the county and One Call. Surely there'd be an agreement, right? Well, when I sent out an email back on February 3rd, I got a response later on that day that did not give me a copy of the agreement. Instead, what they did was they cited state law. They provided me with definitions, and they also attached a copy of Senate Bill 0559, which was about the development of One Call in the first place. So, so what? Once I got that response, what I did is I reached out to legal service, both Bill Sargent and Joel Stevens, via email, providing with an overall summary of what I've experienced so far, and then I can say that their response was they expressed doubts about Parks being identified as an operator right away. They also thought it was important to get Chris Lady's opinion on the matter, and then Chris responded not too soon after, but March 4th, Chris provided a response. I'll just read this. I wouldn't think this applies to Parks. They don't manage an underground facility except service lines, and the only people that should be digging on Parks land is Parks people. Parks would essentially notify themselves, and Parks should also need to grant permission to utility providers to dig, as such notification is already in existence. So he goes on to say that Parks should be considered a non-subscribing operator. If someone dug and damaged the line, the utility company is on the hook. Since Park controls who digs on their property, the mechanism for repairs for damaged utilities is established via a contract. So if a contractor is excavated on Parks land under contract Parks and didn't know about a line, well, certainly Parks would be responsible, right? And there's no doubt about that. Perhaps as a result of the response from Chris, Joel Stevens copied me an email saying that he would reach out to One Call and see what he could do. He did, and what I understand from communication with him about this was that we could extricate ourselves, but it would need to take your authorization, and then he would then write that letter to One Call, and make it, requesting for this to occur. What else? I think that, in summary, I guess I'm really concerned about the responsibilities associated with this program, especially as it relies on Park staff to do it, the expense as well as the liability associated with being considered as an operator. Park staff certainly doesn't have any appropriate training, doesn't own the appropriate tool or have the maps indicating where these utilities might be located outside of the park boundaries, and let alone having the staff time to begin with, right? We barely make what we do happen now. And so I think that based on the information provided, what I respectfully request is the board to authorize the county legal to write and submit a letter to One Call relieving Parks of its designation as an operator and all associated responsibilities. I can answer any questions that you might have, or at least give it my best shot.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Questions, commissioners?
I appreciate Dan plowing through this mess. It's goofy. It's goofy for all the reasons you said, that we have not in anyone's memory on the Parks Department have we ever provided the service. We don't have the training to be locators. And I don't think we even have maps showing us where all those utility lines are, because it's not our responsibility. I don't think that even exists. So we couldn't do it if we wanted to. So it's a mystery how that all came to be, or when, or if we ever did it. I doubt it. So I think we definitely should get out of it.
I was waiting for you to tell me that you had to send some money to Nigeria.
Gift cards. Gift cards to Nigeria.
I mean, I'm looking at it, One Call Concepts Incorporated. Is this a private company that's supposedly contracted? Because to me, this sounds fishy. So I'm glad you did all the due diligence you've done. It doesn't make much sense to me. It does sound like it sounds like a phishing scam or a scam to me, even if it's not. But even if it's not, I think that I would agree with your recommendation that we have Jules in the letter.
Right. Yeah, I think so as well.
Bizarre.
And if you keep getting tickets, then the next letter should be a cease and desist letter.
Every
for
day,
those.
sometimes they say zero, activities, sometimes they give us, addresses and sites that we have to go check out.
Wow. Huh. And I didn't look at the maps. Are there just random areas around the county, or is it on county property specifically?
It's like, well, I think.
What did you say, the hexagons? What are they?
Yeah, the polygons,
You
yeah.
got the Memphis there, and then it goes way down the road towards the parking lot.
Uh-huh.
And so, you know, why, how are these polygons were developed? I have no clue whatsoever.
Yeah.
Right.
Huh, interesting. No, I would suggest, and Joel's listening in, so I think we've closed the loop, that the recommendation certainly, and we'll look forward to that letter coming before the commissioners to
Absolutely.
remove this from your list of duties.
Great, well, thank you very much. for that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Joel, any thoughts you want to share on that?
No, I'll work with Dan and Chris on, just getting some details to incorporate into the letter and have that ready.
Okay, super, thank you.
And when Dan was talking about his first contact was them saying, "Oh, you have been ignoring us all this time, and now you're whatever," that could have been the interim park director.
Who was ignoring them?
Because I didn't think it was real.
And I wouldn't have
I'm
thought
not
so
sure
either,
I'm not sure what it is, but
right?
thank you for doing the due diligence. You did.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Because some of us wouldn't have done that much.
Some of us thought, that's not right. We're not the locators.
I must have a wrong email, never mind. Okay, thank you, appreciate
Thank
it.
you very much. Appreciate it.
Yeah, you bet, you bet. Okay, those were the only two topics.
Stop that.
I don't know.
I think we need to get
Got
you
rubber
like
shoes.
soft pads or something for it, so
It's a
you
new
can
computer,
slide
you
it
need-
back and forth. Because that's a lot like fingers on a chalkboard. Just a
Now I
lot.
know.
Be careful what you start. Okay, so we have no other topics. Commissioners, do either of you have thoughts or topics or concerns for today?
I just wanted to mention, I told you before we started that, I did reach out to Colpack to see if they would do, some kind of economic study on Highway 6, when it was to close or fail. And I CC'd our representatives and senator on that, and so I did get a call back, and she'd like me to come speak to ODOT and another group about what we're kind of looking for, and I think what our concerns are. So I just, just so the public knows, like, we are very concerned about Highway 6. We don't talk about it as much as maybe we think about it. But that we are looking at some solutions, or maybe to speed up the process. We're gonna need federal money, it's over $50 million. But sometimes the squeaky road does get the grease, and the more we can talk about it, the more work we can get. Or get some right-of-ways figured out, or alignment options, just something, rather than sit on our hands and let the road, it's getting bad, as we all know.
Yeah, on the radio call, so Bill Jablonski was with us on Tuesday, and I asked him, I said, so Bill, it feels to all of us like it's moving a lot faster, and he said, yes, it is. So I followed that up just for the public with, if you have concerns, please reach out to your senator, because Senator Weber is on the ODOT committee, or she's on the transportation committee in this long session. And she had said, tell us, let us know, is there something particular about Highway 6? So just as I think it helps all of our elected officials when they get multiple phone calls to justify what they're asking for. So hopefully folks who are listening will reach out to Senator Weber and say, this is serious.
Including businesses.
Yes,
Large businesses
absolutely.
like the Creamery should be very concerned about that road.
Yep, they should be, and they have a representative on Northwest Act.
Mhm.
Yeah. So, yeah, I think,
And I'll be speaking about this at next week's meeting for that too. So.
perfect, yeah. I wish I could see a path forward that was obvious on this, other than the road completely, falling away. But yeah, I agree. It's like, if we could have, there should be a plan ready on the shelf that says, as soon as this happens and federal money becomes available, if that's the only way we're gonna get it. And now there is the question certainly relating to federal money and whether or not federal money will become available.
Right.
They have not, to the best of my knowledge, I have not seen any news reporting on any reductions yet at the federal DOT, but I can only assume it's a matter of time. and how that will play out. But in the systems as we know them, having a predetermined, pre-designed plan ready so that there would be immediate initiation of construction rather than having to do all that after it falls off the hill seems like a good idea.
I think you're right. Shovel-ready plans are always better.
They're always better. So, yeah. Excellent.
Good.
Fingers crossed,
Yep, we'll just keep plugging away on all this stuff.
right? Right.
I agree with you, and it's daunting to consider, like, comparing it to the Three Capes Scenic Loop.
Yep.
Which that road was repaired several times, and just kept sliding until it was completely re-engineered. And compared to Highway 6, it's relatively short and was extremely expensive. And so when I think about Highway 6, I think, well, where would you have to go with it in order to redesign it out of an active slide area? I obviously don't know, but I wish it were a priority. We were talking earlier about things not ticking the boxes for FEMA. I wish this ticked the boxes for the state, but it's probably just simply a matter of volume, that it's not a high enough volume to reach that.
I think that's what a study, that's my thought. They did a comprehensive study on the road and what repairs were needed, but they didn't really touch upon the financial impact of that road closing. And I think that's why that would be helpful to help. Maybe it will tick some boxes when it's on paper.
Yeah.
We have Amazon coming in. I'm sure they're counting on that road.
Right?
Jeff Bezos has a lot more pull in Washington
Than we do.
So that way, that study would be contacting all these businesses. So they would be like, oh, yeah, I guess we should be addressing this. Maybe a solution is paving a workaround road, knowing that it eventually, anything, even if it's a small road like Blaine Road, it ends up being a slower road. We're not to cut that access off completely. I don't know. I don't know the answer. The smarter people may do, but I want it in front of them to be thinking, hey.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, for sure. Because when they talked about Northwest Act, they're like, well, you could relocate it on the other side of the river.
Yeah.
With bridges and all
Yeah.
that. Or you'd pretty much have to get all the right of way from the private timber companies and the state forest to go behind it and up along the top of that ridge.
Right.
That, your options are not good either way.
When you look at it, Highway 26 has a slide problem going on right
Yep.
now, so that's one of our main secondary routes. So
Mhm.
now
Yep.
we have Blaine Road, we have Highway 53. None of these are good for semis. I mean,
Yeah.
22 can take it. 22 is not a great road.
22 is not a great road either, and that's
we don't consider
edges.
do 18. So like we really, part of what makes us special is the isolation, but
We don't want that much
not to
isolation.
shut that road down for years.
Yeah.
Um,
No, and I like the point that you're thinking about is what is the other way through the state forest? There is another way.
There's another way.
There's a few other
There's
ways.
There's old roads that have gone over
Yeah.
right over to the reservoir and
Yeah, there
into
are other
Washington
ways.
County. So there are solutions, and this is maybe how we spark that conversation. And like you said, it takes years to get right away.
Right? Yeah, no, totally. The Gales Creek Journal has a Facebook page. I don't know if you're on that, but I don't know, it's maybe a month or a month and a half ago, they posted a newspaper article from when they were deciding where to put Highway 6.
Oh.
And it was interesting. They'd had community meetings and done all the stuff, but they were trying to determine whether it should come where it is now or whether it should be coming over Blaine or other, they had a variety of different places they were looking at. So.
Looks like that. What's that highway? Is it was it 30? That got all that revamped down south on the south coast. There's the one that goes into Eugene.
Oh, it might be 30.
It's 20 goes into Corvallis, I think. I think it's 30. And it was remarkable how much work and I have no idea how much that cost,
Yeah.
but that probably took years
Yeah.
of an undertaking.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, if we had all the money, it'd be beautiful. When you said bridges, I just imagined some beautiful, like Zion National Park road. After we got spoiled with the Cape Mears
Yes.
road. We get spoiled when you have a road like that.
I was thinking about when we were on the Blue Ridge Parkway when we went back a
Mhm.
year ago, and there's sections that are miles long that are bridges, that are going along the edge of the hillside.
It's just it costs so much money now. That's
Yeah, it's all money.
It's all
and
money.
None of which we have.
unless we make it a toll road. How's
So
that
put
one?
Put that one in our financial study, Rachel. Can we make toll roads?
If it was our road, if it was a county road, we
Are
probably
we
could.
allowed?
Yeah.
I'm sure we could. Hood River's building a new toll bridge, right? That was part
That
of
would be one way to get day trippers.
at the toll bridge. How about a gondola?
Or just.
Let's just bring a gondola. Leave
That'd be
your
good.
cars in Portland, bring the gondola. We'll have you on a bus.
People at home saying, fix the railroad.
Oh, yeah,
Right? There you go.
right? They're there. So,
Well, Highway 26, it recently, in the last couple of days, they've worked on that spot because when
Mhm.
I went over last week, it was late and it was, luckily they had a lot of lights set up, but you practically had to stop,
I've
like
heard it's
come to
that
a,
much of a
come
drop.
to a stop in order to navigate it. But coming home last night, it's still a serious bump, but it's much better. So there's
Yeah.
they addressed it because of safety.
And I would tell everybody, if you are traveling Highway 6, if you haven't been, it gets worse after a busy weekend. You can go up there on a Monday and you can see the cracks.
and after the
split.
rain.
And the rain too.
Because that
the
one
trucks.
Northwest Act meeting where they presented it, and I can't remember what the statistic was, but it was like for every inch of rain, the road would slide a quarter of an inch or something.
Oh,
wow.
They've actually,
Wow.
put together that,
Hmm.
statistic, and I think it's going faster. And
Well, and just like
now.
Cape Mears, the
Yeah.
more asphalt we throw on it, the more weight we're putting on it. We just continue to put more material on
Yep.
the sliding,
Yeah.
sloughing. Yeah, it's, anyway, so we'll, one of the things we're working on.
Good, well, that would be great if Colpac could do that, if could find the funding, so that would be big.
Yep.
Commissioner Bell, anything on your?
The campaign for TLT increase is on the ballot, is moving forward. I have my thanks to Commissioner Fournier, who went to Pacific City yesterday and talked about it at the Candidates Forum. I'm going to go to the Oceanside Community Association meeting on Saturday. We're filling out that list of possible speaking engagements. The committee is reconvening on Friday. We have a radio spot, we have an interview with Will, and then the committee will get together. So it's moving forward. Yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah, and mostly the response has been good. It's mostly good. I think the people who've talked to me who are concerned about it are largely the short-term rental owners and operators and we're hearing more of the same concerns that we heard in those initial meetings.
Yeah, okay. Okay.
Do
moving
we have an update on the 3225?
3556.
Thank you.
They had a work group yesterday. I haven't heard anything on Japanese, but whether it's.
Oh, did they have a work
They
session? Was
had a
that
work session
yesterday?
yesterday. I missed it because I was in PC.
Go into OLS, look it up.
I don't want to. I'm afraid to look.
Is it that, it will, normally coming out of a work
It got-
session will show the.
Commissioners, it got set over till the 3rd.
Oh,
They didn't
that's
talk
good.
about it all.
Matt's been keeping track of that one too.
Perfect,
Matt.
thank you.
Thank you, Matt.
Okay.
So
So
it's still alive.
it's still alive. If it got set over, that means it's still alive.
People were talking about it as a state level TLT discussion, but just because people knew. 35, 55, 56. And it's gone farther and lasts longer than any
Yeah,
similar bill in a decade.
that's right. It's been alive, so we'll keep our fingers crossed. See where it goes. Let's see. So I was over in Salem on Friday for the STIA meeting, and we talked a little bit more about the sort of model that I had shared with you of the parks being backbone, counties being sponsors, and then there being champions that actually build trail. And there was agreement in the group to move forward with fleshing out that model. So what I expect will come next, Mike Cafaretta is working on what the agreement would look like. So what would the agreement we would sign as a sponsor? What would we be committing to specifically, so that we can kind of chew on that a little bit and make sure that they're not asking us for anything that
Yeah.
we don't feel we can commit to. So more details to come. Hopefully we will have that by the end of June. It's my understanding that's sort of when Mike Cafaretta is done with this assignment. So pushing hard to try to get this done before that.
Great. When I met with, help me out with her name.
Caroline.
Thank you, Caroline. She asked if there was any possibility that the county would be responsible for maintenance of the trail in unincorporated Tillamook County. When the trail's built, it's not in a city. And I said, we could certainly talk about that. I'm not readily picturing who would do the maintenance, but we could certainly talk about it. So I hope something like that will come to us. That's like, here's a piece that you could be responsible for, and does, can we partner in that?
Yeah, and I think the way that kind of shakes out with the way they're looking at it right now would be that there has to be a champion to build it, and at the time the champion comes forward to build it, that is when the maintenance commitment would be made. So if the Salmonberry Trail Foundation said, well, you know what, we'll raise the money to build this section. We want to connect Rockaway to Wheeler because Rockaway's doing their section and Wheeler's doing their section. And boy, that'd be great to have that connection. And if the foundation, for example, said, we'll build it if you'll maintain it. So I could see us being asked in that sort of frame. The other piece would be if at any point we said, I really want to see that connected, we're going to figure out how to have the county build it and maintain it, right? So there are two distinct and different roles as being defined in this structure. One of them is the sponsor, and that's Tillamook County as a sponsor, meaning that we are aware of, supportive of any champions, which is the next level down, that are wanting to build trail in Tillamook County. And we have to sign off that we believe the champions coming to the table, we believe they can do this work. And if they fail at some point, we will find a champions to fill in. So that's really kind of what they're asking us in that sponsor role. If we choose to take anything of the champion role, which would be building or maintenance or maybe just trash or, whatever, we can choose to do that if we wish to, but that is not a requirement of how this structure is built. We are just taking responsibility at a level by saying, if the champions who have built it or promised to maintain it disappear, we'll be involved in trying to engage and find other champions. So, but yes, we could end up in that role if we so chose at some point.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Rachel, anything while you have the three of us together? No?
Okay.
No? Okay. Anyone online? Okay. Not hearing any. Everybody's going to get the better part of an hour back in their afternoon as we will adjourn this board briefing at 3:06 p.m.
It's a scam. But I think the company's just trying to.
Yeah, trying to.
I would have thought it was good like you did. I would have been very suspect of it. It's like has a .org address. It's not a .gov address. It's an incorporation.
Yeah.
Maybe it has something. There's also a thing called 811, which is a number you